Utah Jazz defeat the Houston Rockets to win their 9th game in their last 10, but a 14-point lead with 6 minutes left disappeared, and that might be the headliner more than another win for the Jazz. We'll talk about that. Mike Conley's clutch threes and Donovan Mitchell's fabulous performance, not to be forgotten. It's all coming up on POSTCAST. David Locke along with Ron Boone with you here from Houston after the Jazz seemingly had this game completely in control. I voiced as much on the air and then promptly lost a 106-92 lead in the final 6 minutes. Mike Conley did some massive things. Rudy Gobert, Donovan Mitchell had some big games as well. But let's dig into the negative first, Ron. You're playing a team that is playing footloose and fancy-free, but they've lost 10 in a row. You have them on the ropes, 106-92. What went wrong in the final 6 minutes of regulation?
Well, you start having flashbacks of when they beat the Jazz in early in the year and how they won the basketball game. But the Jazz doing something different defensively. I'm sure they'll get better at it. But I thought the Rockets kind of took advantage of that. I mean, they positioned players a little bit different out there on the floor, and all of a sudden Martin, Woods end up knocking down some threes, and Green had a pretty good night. But I thought in that fourth quarter it was Martin and Wood that got things going.
And they played a two-man game with Christian Wood and Kevin Porter Jr., and the Jazz tried to have Gobert shadow in the middle with O'Neal guarding that. It allowed for open threes, but also in some other times Gobert wasn't able to have an impact on it. They really just had their way offensively against the Jazz, and that's troublesome because this is the same script by which teams play 5 out against us, Terrence Mann, in the playoffs, and they're able to have these runs, and the Jazz can't get the stops, and Gobert's not impacting the game defensively.
Well, I'm sure that, this is a test, I think, and they'll get better at it. Maybe the shift needs to be a little bit different. Maybe to the point where Rudy doesn't have to close out that far. Maybe it might shift the other way. I'm not sure, but that's going to be a problem if they don't get better at it. But it was a smart play, I thought, there by Silas, to make something like that happen. You got to realize that when you have a team you just mentioned earlier, this just plays so loose and they're not supposed to be very good. They had lost 9 in a row, 10 in a row, and so just threw up some shots and they went in, and the Jazz just couldn't put the fire out.
All right, late in the ballgame, Donovan Mitchell finds Mike Conley for 2, if not 3. Mike had 3 threes. I can't remember if Donovan assisted on all 3 of them, but Mike Conley in the clutch, that's pretty marvelous stuff. He is now 12 of 22 in the clutch from 3 this year. That's over 50%. Monster one in closing regulation to put us up 3, followed by Christian Wood's 3 to force overtime with the Jazz. Good question about why the Jazz didn't foul. I think the answer is they haven't practiced it a lot and haven't done it. But frankly, when there were plenty of opportunities there to foul safely, it's just it gets a little tough. You don't want to put him on the free throw line for 3, but when Christian Wood puts it on the deck, you certainly could have fouled. When Kevin Porter put it on the deck, you certainly could have fouled. So if that was the play, the Jazz could have done so. But nonetheless, then Mike Conley buries 2 threes late and carries the Jazz to this game. That was big-time performance because Mike was, I believe, 1 of 7 for the night when he hits the first one.
Yeah, when he made that three, one of those threes was off the bounce there, straight down the barrel in the middle of the floor. But we also got to filter in those free throws that was missed there by Donovan.
Donovan's at 50% on free throws in the clutch this year.
And that's not good. I mean, you got your star player who is a very good free throw shooter, at over 80%. You expect for him to make those. But Conley, the veteran, bailed the Jazz out tonight.
All right, let's get some of your questions. Let's start with Donovan, by the way. First half was just masterful, 20 points, then 10 assists. They certainly closed on him. Rudy had 10 dunks tonight as well. Those guys were pretty great as well.
Let's also, David, that fourth quarter. Look at that fourth quarter there. It's 72%. They were 13 for 18, 5 for 9 from the three-point line. Just some great shooting there by the Rockets in that fourth quarter.
And Kenyon Martin Jr. hitting 2 of those threes. that was there. Hayden says, has there ever been such a level of mental fragility from a sporting club before? If not uncommon to double fault and miss penalties in big moments, but a collective group seems a little overstated. But do you credit this to mental fragility or focus, or what do you say this or is it a weakness that got exposed on the roster? I think that could be it as well.
Yeah, it could be that, absolutely. But if you talk to the coaches, they're going to say that you lose focus and you end up losing the basketball game. I mean, it's no way a team like the Jazz, as good as they are, this is considered one of the better teams in the NBA, should not be able to lose momentum and not be able to get it back. And I just think that's a big problem.
Lacey says, glad we're getting some practice in clutch, but it's taking years off my life. Is this good practice in close games?
Well, absolutely. Any game in a close ball game is good practice. It's a good practice for coaches. It's a good practice for players. I mean, there's certain plays you like to run. You work on plays all season long in the closing minutes of a basketball game to try to get buckets. You get a chance to put some of that stuff together, but it is good practice. So I totally agree with that.
A lot of people asking about the foul down 3. I think we just addressed it. I'll find out we'll talk to Quinn, find out what they wanted to do or not wanted to do. The best coach ever talked to me about it was Elaine Elliott, the former Utah head coach.
Mm-hmm.
She said to me, you can tell me everything you want about analytics and what's right to do. I'm going to tell you what we're going to do. We practiced. Yeah. And unless we've taken a lot of time and practiced how to foul, I'm not going to ask my team to foul in that circumstance because they'll probably not do it right if we haven't practiced it. And I think there's some level to that. And the numbers are sliding a little bit both directions on it, but I do agree that there were plenty of opportunities to foul if we had wanted.
Plenty of opportunities. That from coach to coach it varies and it's different. Now, today's basketball, as many players that can shoot the 3, that's one thing. Back, I don't know, let's go back 5 years or maybe even as many as 10 years. Wasn't considered to be a high percentage shot. So you roll the dice and think that, okay, that's a 30% shot. We'll roll our dice and see if you can make it. But as many players that can shoot the 3 nowadays, I think the right thing to do was to play the foul game and foul in that situation.
Jazz were playing better without Rudy Gay taking the minutes of guys who were bringing such great energy in prior games. So, Zach, I actually don't think that's inaccurate. I mean, Rudy Gay also went 1 of 7. So if you go 1 of 7, it looks like you're lacking energy. But I think you got to let Rudy Gay try to work his way back. If for 20 games from now, Rudy Gay's not any better, and he's now shot 30% or 25% from 3 for this extended period of time like he did before he got hurt, then maybe you got to make a change. But we signed him to a 3-year contract because he's supposed to be the guy that's going to help us in playoffs and big moments. You got to run him out here for a while and let him see if he can fix it. You can't bench him to win the 72nd game of the year. That would just be horrendously. That would be our 62nd game of the year. Like that, we're playing for June and trying to get to June, and hopefully Rudy Gay is going to be a part of it. So you're going to work him into the lineup and see if you can get him going a little bit more. Any other questions worth grabbing? A lot of Pascal rather than Gay. Seems like you guys are having a good conversation. We'll end with a nice one because it will make you feel good today, Ron. Lacey says, I always listen to 2 of you, even though it doesn't sync up with FUBU. It's totally worth the delay. My favorite is the play-by-play of what's happening on the sidelines. We're the best, Ron.
We're the best. Hello. Thank you.
The Jazz have won 9 of 10. Everyone should be happy. Have a good one. This has been POSTCAST. Talk to you tomorrow for Locked On Jazz. Have a good one.